Hey friends, Wandering Pastor coming to you today on a big day. It's Monday, April 8th, and it's Eclipse Day here in the United States. This is an unusual event, not entirely unusual, but certainly not very common to have a total eclipse here in the United States. In fact, we had one 7 years ago, and a lot of people are making a big deal about that. And they're wondering if this is some sort of sign from God, especially because of the way it crisscrossed between 2017 and here 2024. In fact, I did a little bit of research, and I found that someone calculated, I'm not quite sure how, that the odds of the same spot in any one place having a total eclipse, it happens average of every 375 years. Well, this has been 7 years. So it is pretty unusual in that respect, right? But eclipses are very predictable. Eclipses are natural phenomena that they can look forward to. Scientists and astronomers can look forward and predict exactly when it's going to happen to the minute, to the day and the hour and the minute and the second, and it works. And so in that respect, it's not unusual. But what should we make about things like this? Should we make a big deal out of this? Should we just observe the wonder and precision of God's creation and give him praise? We certainly should do that. But is there anything more to it? And in particular, when you consider other things that are going on in the world as well, when you think of wars and the potential for powder kegs around Israel, around Ukraine and Russia, around China and Taiwan, other places that, man, it just, someone lights a match in the wrong way and the whole thing could go up. And so we've got those concerns. We've got economic concerns because whatever politicians will tell you, we all know it's expensive to live nowadays. And so buy a home or even, get your groceries and get your gas. And so there are things that you wonder, this is a house of cards. When will it collapse? So all of these things are out there, and you wonder, okay, is there some sort of thing that God is trying to communicate to us? So I wanted to take just a minute and talk about that today. Again, I'm going to go back to Matthew chapter 24. It's also dealt with some of it in Luke chapter 21. But let me just read from Matthew 24 just to sort of set the context of kind of how people are thinking or whether, kind of what they're wondering about today. Again, let me say, beginning in verse 6, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. These things must take place. But the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines. There will be earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all of this only is the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Earthquakes in many parts of the world. Earthquakes increasing. One site I follow definitely maps out how you can see the earthquakes are increasing, and it's just kind of following the path of the plates and whatnot. And recently had an unusual earthquake in New Jersey. And again, that's one of those things that makes people stand up and take notice and say, is something bigger going on? Should I be reading into these events? Jesus continues, verse 9. He talks about persecution of the church. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will be hated all over the world because you are my followers. And many will turn away from each other. Turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world to all the nations, and all the nations will hear it, and then the end will come. And Jesus talks in this chapter about paying attention, about watching the signs. Yes, no one knows the day or the hour, but he says, learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that the summer is near. In the same way, when you see all of these things, you can know that his return is very near. So you too, verse 42, must keep watch, for you don't know what day the Lord is returning. So one of the things I think what we should do when we see all these things and we wonder about them, of course, we have no way of absolutely knowing. Earthquakes have happened before. Solar eclipses have happened before. Economic downturn and wars have happened before. What makes this any different? Well, the birth pains, remember, Jesus talked about these, the beginning of the birth pains. And think about any birth that you've experienced or you've seen or you've heard about. Birth, when it starts, when it's actual labor pains, they don't stop. They get worse, they get more intense, they get closer together until birth. Well, in this case, the birth being the return of Jesus, if these things are getting closer together and more intense, then we should pay attention. And so, is this eclipse a sign in the heavens, even though it's entirely predictable? Well, think about it this way. I mean, it may be, I don't know. God who created the world and the heavens and the earth, God who precisely put it together so that astronomers could predict it, that is the God who knew this was coming. So if he's trying to get our attention, perhaps he's using this. And I guess that's the point that I think we should focus on. So if this is a sign, what's it a sign of? If this is God trying to get our attention, what's he trying to do? I think that's the important point. Because whether this is just a natural phenomenon or whether there's any sort of spiritual significance to this plus the other things, I think one of the things God is doing is saying, look, all of these things you put your strength, your dependence on, all of these things you bank on for security, these things are being shaken. These things that you thought you could depend on are, suddenly they're shaking around you and you're going, what's going on? I mean, sometimes if you were in New Jersey, in New York, yeah, literally they were shaking, right? So one of the things I think that it does encourage us to do is to consider, okay, so what should we do in response to all this? Whether it's a sign or whether it's just a happening, a natural phenomenon, what should be our response? I think our response should be to seek the Lord. Jeremiah says in Jeremiah chapter 10, hear the word of the Lord speaks to you, O Israel. He's talking obviously to the nation of Israel at the time. This is what the Lord says. Do not act like other nations who try to read their future in the stars. Do not be afraid of their predictions, even though other nations are terrified by them. The NIV says, do not be like other nations who try to see this or look for the signs in the heavens and see the signs in the heavens and then get terrified by them. We should not be terrified. Instead, what we should do is use this opportunity to make sure we're seeking the Lord. Because the truth is, there will be a day when it's too late. There will be a day when you can no longer seek the Lord. There will be a day when the time is up. Now, whether that day is in your life because you come to the end of it, or predictably or not, or whether that day is like the world because he draws a close to the age of grace, we don't know. In fact, it doesn't really matter. Today is the day to seek the Lord. As Isaiah chapter 55 says, is anyone thirsty? Come and drink. Even if you have no money, come, take of your choice of wine and milk. It's all free. Why spend your money on food that doesn't give you strength? Why pay for food that does no good? Listen to me. You will eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. Come to me with your ears wide open. Listen, and you will find life. I will give you all the unfailing love I promised to David. Verse 6, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call on him now while he is near. Let the wicked change their ways and banish the very thought of doing wrong. Let them turn to the Lord that he might have mercy on them. Yes, turn to our God, for he will forgive generously. And that, I think, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, is the thing to respond. When you see the heavens that seem to be doing this unusual thing, when you see unusual things and things that make you kind of go, what's going on around you, instead of trying to predict what's going on, instead of trying to interpret events, and instead of listening to everybody's opinion, seek the Lord. This is the time to seek the Lord. Whether he is bringing history to a close as we know it, or whether your life may come to a close as we know it, we don't know. None of us does. And so now is the time to seek the Lord. Here's the thing also. It's not just about avoiding judgment in eternity. It's about learning the love of God and living in the love of God and sharing the love of God in the here and now. It's about learning to receive and expect and seek the leadership of God in every area of your life, in the here and now. Because that, I believe, is part of the full life that Jesus promised. That if we're followers of his and we're seeking his wisdom and his leadership in all of life, we will experience full life in the here and now, as well as the promise of eternal life. So today is the day to seek the Lord. Now is the time to seek him while you can. So use this eclipse as an opportunity to praise the God of creation who made things so precisely that it could be predicted, and who is Lord over the sun and the moon and the comets and everything else. Praise the Lord who made all that, but also seek the Lord who loves you and wants a relationship with you and wants to forgive you and bring you into his family. Now is the time to seek the Lord. Wandering Pastor saying, peace. I hope you have a great day. Be careful of the eclipse, but enjoy it.